Good morning, dear children. Today we shall start chapter 18, the Judiciary. The judiciary of a country is the system of courts that interprets and applies laws in the state or country. It also provides a mechanism to resolve disputes presented before it. Now, what is given? That the judiciary of a country is the system of courts that interprets and applies laws in the state or country. That whichever laws are there in our state or in our country, so that is interpreted by the courts of a country. So it also provides a mechanism to resolve disputes presented before it. That whichever disputes are there, whichever cases are there which are brought in the courts, so that is being resolved by the courts only, by the judicial system. The primary responsibility of the judiciary is to ensure justice under equal law irrespective of status, wealth, religion and gender. That is, what is the primary duty, what is the primary responsibility of the judiciary is responsibility of the judiciary is to ensure that justice should be given irrespective of status, wealth, religion and gender. Then, next paragraph, judicial structure in India. The judiciary forms the third branch of the government, the other two being legislature, which is responsible for creating laws, and executive responsible for enforcing laws. So that we have read earlier in chapter number 16 that there are three organs of government, and what are they? Legislature, and then executive, and then third one is judiciary. So we have already learnt about legislature, that legislature is responsible for creating laws and executive is responsible for enforcing laws, and the third one is judiciary, about which we are learning in this chapter. And what is the objective of this judiciary? That its objective is, its primary responsibility is to interpret into the law. Now, the Indian judicial system derives its powers from the current legal framework laid down by the Indian Constitution. So, the Indian judicial system, what does it derive? It derives its powers from the current legal framework laid down by the Indian Constitution. That is, in the Indian Constitution, whichever laws are framed, so according to that it has to work. And the function of the judiciary can be summarized as follows. First one, very important. Now what is given? That what are the functions of judiciary? First one is that to give justice to people. Second, to interpret and supply laws to specific cases, to protect the right of the citizens, to guard the constitution, and the last one, to deliver and enforce judgment. Okay, now while the legislature and the executive in India are organized on federal lines, that is at two levels, one at the center and the other in the states, the constitution has provided for the setting up of a single integrated system of courts to administer both union and state laws. Okay, now what is given? That while the legislature and the executive in India are organized on federal lines, so that is at two levels. Federal line means that is at two levels, one at the center level and the other in the states. So the constitution has provided for the setting up of a single integrated system of courts to administer both union and the state laws. Then the Indian judiciary is organized in a hierarchical form, with the Supreme Court at its apex. Below the Supreme Court are the High Court. High Court is the states, and there are many subordinate courts under the High Courts. Each court is headed by judges with varying powers depending on the level of jurisdiction. The judiciary is independent of the legislature and the executive. Now see, very important, and this you should always keep in mind. So what is given? That the Indian judiciary is organized in the sequence. Okay, and what is there? That which court is the one which has the supreme power? It is the Supreme Court. Okay, and then below Supreme Court it's a High Court, and then Okay, Supreme Court and then High Court. Then after that, what comes? That below High Court there are many subordinate courts under the High Courts, and each court is headed by judges with varying powers. That is, there in the court who are there, judges are there, and they all have their own powers depending on the level of jurisdiction. So the judiciary is independent of legislature and the executive. So this you have to keep in mind. Now after that we shall study about the various forms of court, as we have read just now, that which is the topmost court which has the most power, that is the supreme power. It is the Supreme Court. And where it is located? It is located in our capital, that is New Delhi. Okay, then after this we shall continue. Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has the highest judicial authority in India, and it is located in New Delhi. Any law or order passed by it is binding on all the courts within the territory of India. Now this you have to keep in mind, that the Supreme Court has the highest judicial authority. That is, there is no court above Supreme Court, and once anything has been passed by the Supreme Court, then no one can neglect it. Everyone will be bound to follow whatever they interpret into. Okay, and then it is located in New Delhi. Very important. Now what is composition? The Supreme Court of India comprises Chief Justice of India and not more than 30 other judges. Okay, that who all are there in the Supreme Court? So first one, Chief Justice of India, and second, that not more than 30 other judges. And the Chief Justice and the other judges are appointed by the President of India in consultation with the Council of Ministers. Very important, this you have to always keep in mind, that who elects the judges of Supreme Court. So the Chief Justice and the other judges are appointed by the President with the consultation with the Council of Ministers, and appointments are generally made on the basis of seniority and not political preferences. Okay, then the judges of the Supreme Court retire upon attaining the age of 65 years. So how long they can work there in the Supreme Court? So the judges of the Supreme Court can work till the age of 65. They retire upon attaining the age of 65 years, and they are just a minute, where it is, they are debarred from practicing in any court of law or before any other authority in India post retirement. Okay, now what is given? That is, post retirement means that is after retirement. So they are debarred from practicing in any court, that is, they are not allowed to work in any other court once they get retired. Then a Supreme Court judge can only be dismissed only by an executive order of the President for impeachment on grounds of proven misbehavior or incapacity. That is, if any of the judges of the Supreme Court are misbehaving with anyone, or if they are found inefficient in their work, so they can only be dismissed by an executive order of the President. Okay, and then what are the qualifications needed for to be the judge of a Supreme Court? That to be appointed a judge of the Supreme Court, a person must be a citizen of India. Then second, be a judge of one high court or more continuously for at least 5 years, or be an advocate of a high court for at least 10 years. So any 2 points which are there, that is compulsory for being a judge of the Supreme Court. Now next is given jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Okay, we are completing till here. Then in the next video we will continue from this point. Thank you. Now next point that we have to start is Jurisdiction of Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has a threefold jurisdiction: original, appellate and advisory. Very important, you have to keep in mind that the Supreme Court has threefold jurisdiction, and what are they? Original, appellate and advisory. So first will learn about original jurisdiction, that what is it and what is its role. The original jurisdiction of Supreme Court involves issues brought before it directly. The Supreme Court is the highest interpreter of the Constitution when disputes arise between the Union and the state. So what is given? That the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court involves issues brought before it directly. Very important, that whichever issues are brought directly there in the Supreme Court, so who gets involved in that? The original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Then the Supreme Court is the highest interpreter of the Constitution, that no other court is higher than Supreme Court. And when disputes arise between the Union and the state, that is, whenever dispute arise between the Union and the state, so Supreme Court look into that matter. At the apex of the judicial pyramid, the Supreme Court passes judgments on the following cases. First, disputes between the Government of India and one or more state, that whenever disputes arise between the Government of India and one or more states, so who look into that matter? That whether dispute, that favor has to be given to whom, which party. So who looks into that matter? Supreme Court only, that whenever dispute is there between the Government of India and one or more states. Then second point, that disputes between the Government of India and any state or states on one end and one or more states on the other side. That is such kind of disputes which we are learning just now. Point number 1, 2, 3, 4 is given. So all those disputes are being resolved by the Supreme Court only. Then third is disputes between two or more states which involves any question of law or fact on which the existence or extent of legal right depends. Then fourth, violation of the Constitution by the government or person. So whenever such kind of disputes arise, so who look into matter? It is the Supreme Court only. The Supreme Court is the guardian of fundamental rights of the citizens. Any person whose fundamental rights are violated can directly approach the Supreme Court for remedy. So what is given? That the Supreme Court is the guardian of fundamental rights of the citizens. As we know that all the citizens in our country have got their fundamental rights, and any person whose fundamental rights are violated can directly approach the Supreme Court for remedy. Then next we will learn about the appellate jurisdiction. The Supreme Court is the highest court of appeal. It hears appeals from civil and criminal cases decided in the high courts and the other tribunals. So what is given? Let me read out once again. That the Supreme Court is the highest court of appeal and it hears appeal from civil and criminal cases decided in the high court, that whichever cases are heard in the high court, so those cases are heard once again, they can be heard once again in the Supreme Court and high court and other tribunals. It can also take up appeals from civil cases with constitutional significance. That is, once if any of the cases, any of the disputes are being heard there in the lower courts of the states or there in the high court, then that can also be appealed there in the Supreme Court. Then third, we will learn about advisory jurisdiction. That is third fold of Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can advise the President when requested to do so on matters of law and constitution. However, such an opinion is not binding on the President. So what is given? That the Supreme Court can advise the President when requested to do so. That is, when someone says to advise the president, someone request to do so on matters of law or constitution, so that power also Supreme Court has got, that it can advise the president. However, such an opinion is not binding on the president. Other than the three main jurisdictions, the Supreme Court also has revisory powers and the power of judicial review. It is also a court of record. Okay, now threefold, other than these three folds like original, appellate and advisory, there are other jurisdictions also. And what are they? Revisory powers and the power of judicial review, and it is also a court of record. Now we shall learn what is revisory jurisdiction. This one here. The Supreme Court is empowered to review any judgment or order passed by it with the intention of removing any error or mistake that may have crept in the judgment. So what is given? That the Supreme Court is empowered to review any judgment or order passed by it. Okay, that whichever judgment it has passed once, so it is empowered to review any judgment or order passed by it with the intention of removing any error or mistake that may have been crept in the judgment. That if any kind of judgment has been taken wrongly, so that can be revised once again. That is called revisory jurisdiction. Now another one is judicial review. What is that? The Supreme Court of India has the highest responsibility of protecting and interpreting the Constitution of India. It can review any law or order passed by the central or state governments for constitutional validity. It has the power to reject any law or its part which is found to be unconstitutional. So what is judicial review? The Supreme Court of India has the highest responsibility of protecting and interpreting the Constitution of India. It can review any law or order passed by the central or state governments. That if any law has been passed by the central government or the state government, so that can be reviewed by the Supreme Court. So it has the power to reject any law or its part which is found to be unconstitutional. Okay, now next we'll read that what is court of record. The Constitution makes the Supreme Court a court of record. Okay, the Constitution makes the Supreme Court a court of record. This means the Supreme Court's decisions and judicial proceedings have evidential value and cannot be questioned by any other subordinate courts. That whichever decision has been taken, whatever judgment has been taken on any of the cases by the Supreme Court, then no other subordinate courts are there, whether it is your tribunal courts or whether it is any high court. No one has that power to interpret in that. These evidences and judgments are stored as precedents and references for future disputes. Okay, and the evidences and the judgments which are taken, so they are stored as precedents, that is as an example, and references for the future disputes if same types of cases are coming to Supreme Court. Okay, now after this we have high courts. Now in the next video we shall learn about high courts, its functions, its composition and various other things. Thank you dear children. Prepare well for your unit test chapter number 16 and chapter number 17. Goodbye.